Firstly, I want to provide social safeguards for minimum energy performance standards, or MEPS, in Article 9 of the draft proposal. That will phase out our worst performing buildings while providing protection for those at risk of energy poverty. And if we can bring forward the timelines for MEPS to phase out what I would term unsafe buildings sooner, that would be a progressive step. And I think we need to give a clear timeline to businesses to ensure market preparedness in the construction sector. And this comes across all the Fit for 55 files. I was addressing the issue of sustainable aviation fuel earlier, and it's all about setting a clear trajectory that the industry have to measure up to. The more certainty we can give, the better. Secondly, obviously, I want to increase the number of solar roofs, heat pumps, and deep renovations across Europe by providing financial incentives at an EU level to member states and local authorities so that they can phase out fossil fuel dependency in housing. I mean, next week, the big Repower EU initiative will be announced, and if we can make a specific link within the EPBD text to reflect this, I think it would really help us, because I think it would allow us to fast track these technologies if we can. Thirdly, we need to mobilise financing for the renovations, in particular to support people living in energy poverty. This stuff isn't cheap. I mean, there is low-hanging fruit on it, but we've got to ramp up the finance. And from talking to some of the financial institutions like the EIB or the ECB or the Bank for Reconstruction and Development, they want to do this, but they need the legal certainty that comes from legislation. And I think once that's in place, it will help us go faster, go further faster. Green loans, green mortgages, we're seeing announcements along these lines. We need a lot more of them. And I think there are synergies within European Union and national funding in Article 15, but we've got to get private institutions on board with this as well. I mean, I did a back of an envelope calculation that in Ireland, we probably need $1 billion spent every year on renovations. At European level, maybe 100 billion. You know, pretty soon you're talking real money. And I think we have to look at this in the context of providing stable, good employment over the next 30 years at both professional, skilled worker, unskilled level. So it really has the potential to boost employment in the years ahead. I also think we need to improve the air quality, the indoor air quality of buildings, and adopt a neighbourhood approach by trying to connect renovated buildings to local renewable energy resources that can reduce our energy costs. Household air pollution is a big deal. We're finding out a lot more about it. The World Health Organization is telling us this, and we need to address it in the EPBD, because as we make our homes much more sealed, we then have to ensure that we have a minimum amount of air changes per hour. We need to do this right and make sure that the indoor air quality is good. And I think we need to include this in the energy performance certs under Article 16. I'd like to see the member states do this. Finally, I'd like the member states to be a bit more innovative when it comes to things like zero emission buildings, whole life carbon, and the new European Bauhaus. We can use design to deliver on a lot of our goals, and we heard that wonderful French architectural couple when they won the Pritzker Prize last year talk about the most sustainable building being the building we already have. The bringing whole life carbon into the mix helps us to do this. And look, I think there's a huge amount of wins from all of this. I mean, one final overlooked thing I think is the challenge of renewables being their variation, whether it be wind or solar. But if we use solar in particular within buildings to charge our mobility needs, we can start to kind of dampen down the ups and downs of the grid and use electricity when it's at its greenest. And I think there's an opportunity within the EPBD to do this.